All right, so you found us some pretty intense source material this time. Cain, right? And
Right.
we're not just talking about the whole first murderer thing. This is about getting inside his head, right?
Yeah, it's one thing to know the story Cain and Abel, the offering, but these excerpts, they actually give us a look into what might have been going on with Cain himself, his thoughts, his struggles. And it's kind of surprising how relevant it still feels.
That's what really got me too. You'd think Cain, just bad guy, end of story. But he's actually described as this really thoughtful guy, someone who's thinking about big questions. Like there's this one line, it says, Cain was not just a man of labor. His mind was a labyrinth of deep thought and self-reflection. Doesn't exactly sound like a cold-blooded killer at first, right? Right.
No, not at all. It makes you think about someone really introspective, trying to figure things out. But here's the thing. The excerpts also talk about this deep need he has for recognition, almost like he's got to prove himself, especially to God. And that's a powerful motivator.
Makes you wonder, right? Is that need for validation just part of being human?
Mhm.
And if it is, what makes it so strong that it could actually, I don't know, push someone to do something so extreme?
Hmm.
We've all felt that sting of being overlooked. But for Cain, it's like this constant ache, this hunger. And then you add in the whole comparison thing with Abel.
Exactly. And the excerpts, they show how that just eats away at him. It's not even just that Abel's offerings are accepted, it's that Cain sees it as effortless for Abel, like it comes easy. And that just makes the resentment even worse. He's so focused on this perceived injustice that he can't see anything else.
And that's where you start to see the resentment build, right? Like a simmering pot about to boil over. It's this feeling that everything's unfair, that he's been wronged. But before we get to that breaking point, we got to look closer at this turning point where things really start to go south for Cain. So we've got all this resentment, this yearning just eating away at Cain.
Right.
But the excerpts, they show us this point, this turning point where it all goes wrong. It's not just about the offerings anymore. It's how he sees, I don't know, how God sees him.
And it's really interesting. The excerpts actually point out this huge difference between how Cain and Abel approach faith. Abel, it seems like he just gets it, like that connection with God just makes sense to him. So his offering is, genuine. But Cain, he's stuck in this whole transaction mindset.
Like trying to earn God's approval, trying to prove something. But that's not really how faith works, is it? It's something deeper.
Exactly. And because Cain is stuck in this transactional view, he just misses the point completely. He sees Abel getting favor, and it's just random, unfair, even a personal attack to him. The excerpts describe his thoughts spiraling, like there's a storm brewing inside him. This isn't just jealousy anymore. This is like a fundamental misunderstanding of his whole relationship with God.
And all those years of resentment, it builds up to that confrontation with Abel. And it's not a calm, rational talk, is it? The excerpts use some pretty intense language. Let me see. In that moment, Cain's heart thundered. His mind, once a maze of reflective thought, had become a furnace of raw emotion. Wow, you could just feel the rage, the desperation.
And that's important here, I think. The excerpts, they seem to say at Cain's violence, it wasn't just about getting rid of Abel. It was about trying to control something he didn't get. To force God's hand, to rewrite the story. That need for control, especially with all the envy and resentment, that's dangerous stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of scary how relatable that feeling is, even if most of us hopefully would never actually hurt anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But what gets me is how they describe what happens right after. No victory, no relief, just emptiness.
Right. It's like silencing Abel. He silenced something in himself, too. Now he's facing this awful truth. His actions, they didn't get him what he wanted, not even close.
There's this one line that just kills me. The earth, his once loyal companion, now seemed to recoil at his presence. Like nature itself can't stand him anymore. And then there's the punishment from God. That's heavy stuff. But the excerpts, they really make you feel that Cain's own punishment, that regret, that guilt, that might be even worse. It really makes you think, like we always hear about the punishment, the consequences, the stuff that happens to you when you mess up. But with Cain, it's like, the worst part is what's going on inside.
It's the oldest story in the book, right?
Yeah.
Guilt, remorse, those things don't just disappear. And the excerpts, they make it clear Cain isn't just cursed by God. He's cursed by what he did, by knowing what he did.
Makes you wonder, what's worse? Someone punishing you or you punishing yourself? And these excerpts, they really get at that feeling. There's this part, it talks about Cain as a wanderer upon the earth, haunted by what he did. Powerful stuff.
It's that feeling we all have, right? That we can't outrun our mistakes, that some things, they just stick with you. The excerpts, they really capture that feeling.
They do. And, it's weird. This story, it's ancient, right? But these excerpts, they make it feel so real, so close. Like, haven't we all felt that need for recognition, that fear of being overlooked? Maybe not as intense as Cain, but still.
It's human, isn't it? That desire to be seen, to matter. And these excerpts, they show us just how easily that desire, if we're not careful, it can twist into something darker, especially with envy, with resentment.
Yeah, and it's not about saying what Cain did was okay, not at all. It's about trying to understand,
Yeah.
right, what leads someone to that point. Because maybe, just maybe, if we can see it in him, we can see it in ourselves too. Those times when we start down that same road, even if it's just a little bit.
Exactly. It's about asking ourselves those tough questions, like where do we get our sense of worth? Are we letting other people define that for us? Or, and this is the big one, can we find that peace inside ourselves, even if no one else notices?
Now, that's something to think about. And, this story, it's dark, right? Violence, envy, all that. But even in these excerpts, there's this little bit of hope. Like Cain, he screwed up massively, but there's still something in him that wants something more.
You're right. There's a line in there, something about Cain yearning for redemption. Does he find it? Who knows? The Bible doesn't really say. But the fact that he still wants it, that he hasn't given up entirely, that's hopeful, don't you think? Even after everything.
It is. It's like, even when we're at our worst, there's still a chance, right? For change, for growth, maybe even for something like redemption. Makes you think, can we ever really escape our past? Or does it make us who we are? And if redemption really is possible, what does it even look like? Not just for other people to see, but for ourselves too. It seems like even this old story, with all its mysteries and interpretations, it's still teaching us something about being human, about those journeys we take, not just out in the world, but inside ourselves too.